Before we begin, let's quickly work on a definition for emotion. So if you had to define emotion to me, how would you define it? If you had to work out a succinct explanation for emotion, what would that definition be?
It's a sense, a feeling.
Okay, a feeling, a sense.
A state in which a person is, state of mind.
Okay, I like that. Let's just brainstorm words and ideas that come up. Okay, a state of mind. Good, I like that.
Nick, 1 second.
No problem.
My cousin is with me, ne?
Oh, great. Hello, nice to meet you. What is your name?
Zach.
Hello, Zach. So nice to meet you. Welcome to today's class. Please feel free to join in on the discussion. You're part of this group for all intents and purposes. Right, so feel free to participate. All right, so Zach, let's start with you. If you had to define an emotion, what would it be? Put you nicely on the spot here.
I'm going through a state of despair right now, a sense of loss.
All right, so if you had to define it, right, and you had to explain what the emotion, not what despair is, but what an emotion is, now that you're in an emotional state, how would you explain it to me if I'd never heard of an emotion before?
It's not natural, that's for sure.
Okay, I like that.
I'm experiencing a state of loss, despair. I've never experienced such a low in, I think, all of my life.
All right. Would you agree with me then, Zach, that there's a physical feeling attached to it?
Yes, I'm physically weakened by all that is happening with me.
Good. Is there a thought process that goes with it? So you think about something?
Well, the thought process is much more like, it's very dark. There's nothing, essentially there's no hope. There's no way forward. I'm like in a stagnated water.
Okay, so let's call that a perceptual filter, because that's the way you're seeing the world, yes?
Yeah, so that's exactly where I see myself right now.
Yes, and can I venture a guess to say that something triggered this? You don't have to tell me what it is, but can I venture a guess that something triggered this emotion?
Yes, sir, it did.
All right. And that is the best definition of an emotion, as you'll discover throughout this class, is that there's a precipitating factor, a perceptual filter, and a physiological response. Right, Zach, if at any point today you feel that this class is touching on things that you're uncomfortable with, that you feel triggered by, I don't want you to put yourself in a worse emotional state. Of course, I'll touch base with you after the class just to make sure you're okay. But feel free to leave at any stage if you feel like it's a bit too raw for you. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Right, perfect. So what we'll be doing today is we're going to work on that definition of an emotion. We're going to try and work through how knowledge and emotions are linked. Finally, we're going to build up to what intuition is, right? And then we're going to look at the role of emotions and what they play, sort of overall, leading up to what emotional intelligence is, right? So in psychology, an emotion is defined. Actually, Jackie, I haven't heard you define emotion. Let me just go back 1 second.
It's unfair.
Yes, I think it's very unfair. You and Sophia have been very quiet. We have vulnerability happening. We have emotional discussion, and you guys are dead quiet. Let's go. What is an emotion?
I was going to say that it is a reaction to an external stimulus. I would have said that it's almost a warning signal that our body gives us that something is good or bad. It's the way our body protects us or shields us or whatever. So if you see a lion, the emotion is fear and you have a physiological response to that, but that's a good thing because you want to run away from a lion. If you see your child, you want to have an emotion of compassion or love because you are supposed to go and hug your child at that point. So it's a...
So you're saying it's more evolutionary based?
Yeah, I think it serves I think I'm taking it a step further, which is maybe not what I should be doing in terms of a definition, but I think it's an evolution. It's a way the body has, the way in which the body has developed a protection system for us.
Okay, I like it.
And it's based in the center part of your brain.
Good. That's very important, because later on, when I discuss that emotions are all false and do not exist, you're going to have to come back to that. Sophia, give me an emotional description.
Lies.
What's an emotion?
Sophia's emotion is in seventh heaven at the moment.
Has she quietly taken a break to
knocked out.
beat her baker temporarily? Okay, that's perfectly fine. Right. Okay, so psychology defines an emotion as a reaction that involves physiological changes, right? Often seen through the accelerated pulse rate or body temperature or feelings in your body like chicken flesh, whatever that may be. There's a cognitive element to emotions, right? So our emotions are influenced by our beliefs, and our beliefs are influenced by our emotions. We're talking about personal beliefs at this stage, right? So that's a very broad overview of what an emotion is according to it. So if we go back and we look at what the word emotion is, right? So emotion is derived from a Latin verb meaning movere, which means what? Shakir, what could movere mean? Just looking at the word.
There's move in it. It moves your state of mind.
That's it. It's to move, right? So there's a movement that happens, right? In the original or mostly archaic version of emotions, and some stuff we still accept relatively today, is that it includes feelings, states, like Shakira spoke about, moods, passions, which ironically enough is also from the Latin root of suffering, which is a discussion we'll get to at some stage. And it consists of various internal feelings, right? And external forms of behavior. We know that emotions can vary in intensity. You can be slightly irritated. You can be blinded by rage. A passion, according to psych, is a strong emotion, right? According to axiology, it's a source of suffering. And a mood is an emotion that continues for a period of time. So that's quite important to understand things such as mood disorders, a change in mood, right? Is that it's one emotion carried over a period of time. All right, do I have you all there?
Yes.
All right, great.
Yes,
Do you have a piece of paper in front of you by any chance, or something you can write with, or are we going to do this verbally? I do not mind.
Verbally. I'm going to be in a car soon.
Okay, perfect. So I want you to look at this, all right? You have two polar opposites. There's strong and weak. There's negative and positive. So something can be strongly negative. It can be strong positive. It can be weakly negative. It can be weakly positive. All right? I'm going to say some emotions. You tell me where it falls in there. Resentment. Jackie.
Quite strongly negative.
Okay. Shakir. Appreciation.
Positive.
Strong or weak?
And can be strongly positive as well. Strong.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Zach.
yes, sir.
Shame. Where does that fall?
It's
Positive or
strong.
negative? It's a strong
Negative.
one? Negative.
Strong.
Okay,
These are very-
good. Let's get a bit more abstract. The love you feel for your pet, where would that fall in?
Positive emotion. What's the answer?
Jackie,
Who
where
are
would
you
that fall?
asking?
Sorry,
Okay.
you.
It's positive. I think I could only say strong or weak in comparison to another kind of love. So it's
Okay,
weaker than love for a partner, for example.
Okay, perfect. Shakir,
Debatable.
cynicism.
Debatable, yes.
Cynicism.
Explain cynicism.
Sorry.
Explain cynicism.
So a cynic would be a person that is very realistic with their worldview. That probably sees more negatives than positives.
Did you say realistic with their worldview?
I said what I said, and I regret.
He's a
Wow.
pessimist.
He is a pessimist.
So
Sure.
it's
Somebody's had a bad
pessimism
day.
amplified,
Okay, so then it's very strong negative.
strong negative. Okay, Petra, are you with us in this class?
He's making supper.
Oh,
Ah.
yeah.
Must be nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Covert hostility. Positive, weak, strong, negative, or strong, weak, negative, or positive.
I would say strong negative.
Okay. So as I'm speaking through these things, you will notice that if I had to ask you to sketch it on this piece of paper, some things you would agree on and other things you wouldn't agree on. And that means that there's a very strong perceptual understanding of emotions, right? It's a very personalized perceptual filter through emotion. Why are we studying emotions? Because the more you understand emotions and how they act on people and how they are conceived and how they grow and how they express, the better you can communicate with people in trying and difficult emotional states. Okay, so let's do some emotional recognition just to make sure we're all on the same page. Jackie, picture one, the lady or the gentleman with the blonde. Right? What emotion is that?
It's a terrible photo.
It is.
I'm trying to see.
These are all photos of dead people.
I was going to say this is awful.
I thought it was
It's negative.
What word would you give
Maybe
that emotion?
anger. Maybe anger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shagir, do you agree with that? Zach, do you agree with that?
I actually
Frustration.
look at it as anxiety, like person watching soccer, waiting for the goal to happen.
Okay. You've got anxiety. Zach, what do you think that emotion is?
Frustration.
Frustration. Okay, perfect. Second one. Let's go, Jackie.
Sorry?
The second one with the gentleman, the older gentleman.
Fear.
Yeah. Shakir?
Spot on.
Zach?
Yes, sir. Fear.
Yeah, all right. The third one in that row. Let's start backwards. Shakir.
Self-explanatory. It's pissed off.
Pissed off. Okay. Zach.
He's unhappy about something.
Okay. Unhappiness. Jackie.
Disgust.
Disgust. Okay. Let's go on to the one just below that.
That's sadness.
Okay. I hear sadness. Somebody else have another one?
Sadness, despondency.
I see pity as well.
Okay. So let's compare what you have.
Maybe exhaustion.
Anger, fear, disgust, sadness, happiness, surprise. Okay, so most of us were right. Okay. So when photographs are shown to people, no matter which country the people are from, no matter where they arise from, they can identify these emotions from the face. Remember, as we spoke last time about TON, right? Children that are born blind and deaf cannot identify these emotions because they cannot see the face, right? Or hear the voice for deaf children, but they can still express these emotions, which shows that emotions are inborn rather than learned. That's quite important to understand, right? Emotions happen through a natural process rather than a learned process. All right, so let's go into James Lang. And James Lang is one of, I think, 3 theorists that we will discuss today, all right? And he said the following. He said, in summary, before all of this, he said that There's a stimulus. You see something, you process something, you respond to something. Right? And all of this happens in the amygdala. There's an example of a snake. So you see the snake is a stimulus. You process the information of the snake. What does this mean to see the snake? All of that happens in the amygdala, which is which part of the brain for extra points that do not exist? Anybody?
Side. The side.
It's on the sort of middle back. But okay, what other term would we use for the amygdala? If you had an advanced brain, a problem-solving brain, or a reptile brain, a very unformed brain, an evolutionary brain, where would it be?
Problem-solving brain.
Sorry?
Problem-solving brain.
No. All right. So emotions happen, according to the James Lange theory, in the amygdala, which is the impulsive brain. Okay, perfect. Ledoux
So
came through with
emotion
his,
is an
yes,
impulse.
sorry.
So emotion is an impulse.
Yes, it's the part of your brain that looks for food, sex, and immediate satisfaction.
Cool.
So you
Right,
don't
it's-
think about it first. It's the emotion happens first. You can then analyze the emotion, but the emotion happens before you think about it.
That's when
Yes,
you break it down.
there is thinking that happens in the amygdala, which is I perceive something, it causes a response. That's the thinking, the depth of the thinking. There it goes. Right? Think of it as being hungry. When you feel hungry, you don't think, oh, I'm going to feel hungry now, and then start feeling hungry. You feel hungry, then you say, I'm hungry.
Okay.
All right. So Ledoux came through and he said, right, that actually the brain is slightly different with this. All right. That the visual cortex, or what you see, is actually processed to the thalamus, which then goes to the amygdala, which then results in the same action. So he just added one more step. And because of this step, he said then that an impulsive feeling can override the rational part of the brain, which is what Zach was saying, right? That it's the thinking part of the brain. So the important thing there to understand between both these theories, without going into a lot of detail, is that the emotion happens in the part of the brain, right, that can override the logical reasoning developed part of the brain. Okay. When do we see this happening? We see it happening when we speak without thinking, right? When you react on impulse, like somebody says something, you slap them, right? When we act on a hunch, when we have a phobia, such as spiders, even though they're small, right? Or when we're filled with jealousy because of our relevant partner speaking to somebody else, right? All of these happen in that part of the brain, and it overrides the logical part of the brain. If we go to phase 2 of the James Lange theory, he says that we can empathize with other people's feelings by unconsciously mimicking some of the physical expressions of their mood. Okay. What does this mean? If I smile at someone, what are the chances that they'll smile back?
Depending on their mood.
If it's a stranger.
Even more depending on their mood.
Some people are.
Well, Nick, maybe not you, but most strangers smile back at me.
Yeah. So we instinctively replicate emotions. We mimic emotions that we see in other people. All right. So this is a very scientific breakdown of it. Is there's the perception of an emotion arousing stimulus. Then there are physiological changes such as your face. And then there's the interpretation of those changes. And then we call it an emotion. Right. So if, for example, if I say, I am very happy, but I'm not smiling, will you believe me? No.
No.
Right? Because your brain is primed to pick up the physiological response to an emotion and to verify that emotion before you replicate that emotion, before you mimic it back, right? The inverse is what positive psychology uses, which says if you smile, you're bound to start feeling happiness at some stage. If you're frowning the whole time, you will probably feel negative emotions at some stage, right? A very, very extrapolated form of the James Lang theory is basically that, right? If you are not afraid, you don't run because you're afraid, right? You're afraid because you run. So because there's a physiological impulse, you then react with the emotional response. Okay. Do I have everybody up to date?
Like the background music in a movie.
Yes. Yes. That is exactly it. Okay, so let's go to Schachtersinger's theory. Right. So Schachtersinger came up with a slightly different theory. And he said that there's the perception of an emotion arousing stimulus. This leads to a physiological response. Then there is a cognitive identification of feedback from the physiological response, and that is the emotion. That is what we would describe as emotion. All right. A summary of his, sorry, without going into all the details, is I feel my heart is beating fast because I'm afraid. Or he feels that his heart is beating fast because he's excited. So it opens you up to more of a perceptual understanding of the same physiological response. So you could have the same physiological response for two different types of stimulus, but there's a cognitive level that comes in that helps you understand what the emotion is. Do I have you up to there?
So I had a thing that I encountered, I don't know how to say it, where it was like a way to deal with anxiety, that when you're feeling anxiety about something, there's a cognitive way that you trick your brain into believing that it's actually just excitement. Because the physiological response is the same. This one.
That one.
Because
the physiological, exactly
your physiological response is the same, whether it's fear or excitement. So you just, instead of leading into, oh my word, I'm so terrified to step onto the stage and speak to 1,000 people, it's, I'm so excited that I get to teach 1,000 people some stuff. And you cognitively override because it's response to the physiological response. Yeah. That was the theory anyway.
That's based on this theory. And what this theory basically says is that the emotion happens after the physical impulse. Does that make sense? There's a split second. And you can change it through the cognitive filter that you put on it. All right. Finally, I think the last one we're going to do is the Cannon-Bard theory. Right. So the Cannon-Bard theory says that you have a stimulus, you see the snake. Then you are conscious that you're experiencing an emotion, and simultaneously your body changes. You have a physiological response, right? So the feelings of an emotion and the physiological changes are separate but simultaneous in regards to something external. Right? So according to this theory, if you feel fear at the sight of a bear even before you run away from it. Okay. So let's quickly go. Which theory sounds more like your type of theory? Shakir, which one do you resonate with the most?
Positive reframing one.
The one that Jackie just explained?
Yeah.
All right, the Shachter theory. Okay, perfect. Jackie, which one do you respond with?
The problem with that one is that we always can get criticized of having an ostrich approach.
Yeah, it's a terrible theory, but yes, I understand that you like it. Shakir, I'm joking. It's a fully valid theory. All right, Zach, which theory do you resonate with the most? Zachary?
But
Did you say me? Oh,
The bar
Zach.
Yeah, Zach, which one? The Bard theory, that it happens simultaneously, canon Bard.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I like it. Jackie, which one do you resonate with the most?
I think also the simultaneous one.
Okay, all right. Why?
Because I think we have full-bodied responses to something. If there is a delay either way, whether it's brain body or body brain, I think the timing between the two is so infinitesimal, so little, it's almost immaterial. Like, that's why I think it's that one, because maybe it is our brain responding to our body, or it's our body responding to our brain, but it's an absolute split second thing. So I think for the sake of understanding it, it may as well be simultaneous.
Okay, I like it. And Pedro, who has decided to cook during my class, which one do you resonate with the most?
I forgot the name of the person who did it, but I like the one that what was it again?
Well, don't try
How
and remember.
you like bounce off emotions of other people.
Mimicking emotions.
Yeah.
It's the
The
first
deuce.
one from
The
Yeah.
second one, the dough.
Yeah, I like that one.
Okay, I like it.
But won't each one be applied in different situations?
All of them are equally valid, right? Except for Ledoux and Lang. Except for Ledoux and Lang, because Ledoux was the counter to Lang,
Okay.
right? But Lang, Ledoux, Canon Bard, they will all have different times where they shine. None of them have been necessarily disproven. They're all accepted as
Mhm.
the way emotions work. Right, so let's get a bit deeper into emotions. All of them, though, do share common ground, and I think that's quite important. Right? There's a stimulus, there's a physiological impulse, and there's a stimulus perception physiological. In between, Canon Bard puts a cognitive filter. Right? But the three that all three agree on is stimulus, perceptual, and physiological. Whether or not you have the cognitive is the only difference that will be, or the timing of it is the only difference. So underneath all emotion, right, if we zone into the perceptual, right, because that's where the emotion seed is as such, because the stimulus happens, right? So a snake is there, a snake is there. There is nothing else to it. There's a perceptual filter that comes in, which then makes you feel fear, right? Or an emotion. So if you go into the seed of the emotion, if you allow me to just take you on this journey, right? Underneath the perception, you have a belief. And that belief is the ground in which the seed is planted. Are you with me up to that point?
Okay.
For example, right? If I am with a field guide, right? That Australian gentleman who died rather tragically from a fish or something, right?
Steve Owen,
That's it. Let's say Steve Owen and
my
I.
hero. My hero.
Sorry?
He was my
Yes.
hero.
There we go. I'm walking with your hero. Oh, Shakir, you're walking with your hero because I have no desire to walk with him, right? You're both walking in the
Okay.
field, and he's talking to you in a Australian accent, right? And you guys are chatting and chatting and chatting, and suddenly there's a snake in front of you, right? Your physiological response will probably be, shit, there's a snake, fear. His physiological response will be excitement. Ooh, what does the snake do? What type of snake is it, right? Do you see that the snake would be the neutral, and there's a belief underneath it that changes the perception of the emotion?
100%.
Okay, this is quite
I
important.
actually love snakes, and I can catch them and everything.
Okay, so if you and I were walking, right, you would be like, ooh, look, a snake. I would be saying less pleasant words, right, and running in the opposite direction. Right. However, right, that perceptual change, that belief that underlies the perceptual change, that underlies the emotional ground on which you sow your seed of emotion on, as soon as you change that belief, you change the emotion, right? I walk into a room, it's badly lit, I see a rope on the floor, right? I get frightened because I think it's a snake. My belief is it is a snake, and therefore the snake is dangerous, blah, blah, blah. All my perceptions come in. I am scared of it. I switch on the light, and in that instant, I can see that it is just a rope. Immediately, my belief changes, and immediately, cannon bod, right? Simultaneously, my physiological response and emotion changes. Does that make sense up to there? Right? I
Makes
see it.
sense.
Mhm.
However, that belief is changed by him seeing that it's not a snake.
Yes, right?
The seeing is
So
going
again,
to-
it goes to a secondary perceptual stimulus.
Hmm.
But your belief that a rope is not dangerous changes the base fear into something else.
Cool.
Okay, perfect. So, yes.
I have a thought. I'm trying to put it into words. If we believe that emotions are protection, then our emotions are very much related to what is good and what is bad.
Yes.
So a snake is bad, and my child, most of the time, is good, right? Or neutral, good, bad, or neutral, let's say. I think some things are, I don't think everything is neutral.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Right. In the belief,
So
if you are defining emotion
that is where, yeah.
as a protective device, right, then you're going to hit a lot of issues later on, right? Because not all emotions serve to protect you. At best, you can say that emotions serve to protect your perception, right? You cannot say that they serve to protect you evolutionarily. Because you could love your abuser. You could feel a very powerful, positive response to them. That's not your emotion protecting you.
Yeah, but that's when emotion has been maladapted. That's a maladaptation.
No, the emotion is real.
It still stays an emotion.
Still an emotion.
Yeah, but it's a misplaced emotion. That's an unusual situation. Generally speaking, somebody hurting you generally is seen as a negative.
Okay, so generally speaking, I really love sugar. I really know it's not good for me, but I love it. Is that a maladaptive emotion?
What about the abused women that feel they need to go back into the relationship?
Yes. So
sorry, Zach.
I think
Speak to the mic. Let me hear you. Your voice is important. Oh, there, I've hit my psychological keywords for the day. Yes, let's go, Zach. What did you say?
I was saying is that on that note, regarding that particular emotion, is that you'll find, well, it's more gender based, but you find amongst women that have been abused, they would tend to go back into that situation or that relationship. How should I won't say helplessness, but it's as if sort of part of their makeup, the physiological makeup. That is.
I can see what you're saying. I can see what you're saying.
Part of their mind would tell them that it is wrong for you to return to that situation or environment or that relationship. But a major part of them also wants to go back. They feel helpless. They need to go back to the abuser.
Yeah, so that would be more on the action-based side of emotions. right? And I think we're going to get into it now with powerful emotions. Also, so I think it will clarify exactly what you're saying as this class continues. But you're onto something good there.
Can
I also
can-
feel.
yeah.
Yes, Jackie, it's fine.
I just want to know, is there a difference between emotion and like a fight-flight response?
The emotion leads to a fight-flight response.
But a fight-flight response is
It's
very
a
much
consequence.
protective.
Fight flight is a consequence of it.
Yes, it leads to it, but the emotion itself is not it. So fight or flight is not an emotion.
Okay, so that's what I'm. Okay, so fight or flight is not an emotion.
No, fight or flight
Action.
is a protective defense, and that's why it happens.
Because of an emotion of fear or something.
Because there's a perception that comes into place, right? So fight or flight happens a split second post emotion, right? Or if your understanding would be simultaneously to emotion, but it is not the emotion.
Okay. Okay, so
That is
fight
the
flight is the bodily
physiological
response, the physiological response that then is interpreted, or vice versa. It comes from an emotion.
Yes, it is
Okay,
not
got
the
it.
emotion.
So it's your body's response to protect
That's
because
it.
of the emotion. Got
Because
it.
of the
I'm
emotion.
with you. I'm with you. Okay, no, I'm with you.
Okay. Which is why we
Uh,
cannot see. Yes, sorry, Shakir.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when we say the word emotion, we must keep in mind that it could be negative or positive.
Yes, 100%. And it could be strong, it could be weak, and there's a whole
Exactly.
spectrum in between that it could
Because
be.
usually when we say, why are you so emotional? We're not
Mhm.
necessarily asking the person, why are you so happy?
Yes, exactly. We can
There's more,
add a negative to it.
there's a more negative connotation to it.
Mhm. Yep, exactly. Exactly that.
This is very good.
Okay, so you have, and I think I really need to clarify this again. It is very dangerous to perceive emotion as a protective evolutionary tool because it is not, right? And it gives the emotion too much power, right, over what the response is. And if we view people as simply needing to protect themselves, right, then we have to excuse emotion largely. We have to negate it. Whereas that's not one of the functions of emotion. All right. So just be very careful with that, especially when you're dealing with other people.
I wanted to say that like
Hmm.
emotion is like a fever. So it's not like a fever.
Hmm.
The fever tells you that there's something wrong with the body.
No, this would be emotion is more like nausea,
Ah,
right? You eat something bad, you feel nauseous, that's the emotion, and then you vomit, that's the physiological. If you had to really slow down the
excellent.
emotional
Excellent.
understanding, right? Okay, so let's move into strong emotions, right? So strong emotions distort, because remember, your beliefs influence your emotions influence your beliefs, right? If an emotion gets very strong, it can distort your beliefs. So powerful emotions distort and result in biased perceptions, which then result in fallacious reasoning, right? And emotive language, which then feeds itself back into powerful emotions. The best way to study this or to see it in action, has anybody been following the UK riots?
UK?
A
The
little
riots,
bit, yeah.
right? Okay,
Nope.
even better. Has anybody been following the American election with Trump?
Yes.
Yeah.
There we are. Okay, right.
Never
So
heard of it.
what's happening there, right? People have very powerful emotions about Trump, right? This leads to them having biased perceptions, and you can see it during the interviews with them, where they're like, no, there must be a reason something happened, or he did it because he cared, right? So they will change their perception They will then use fallacious reasoning, such as it's big, it's the big hidden Illuminati hiding all of this, right? Then they use emotive language to describe it. And over the year, or maybe 2 years, we've seen how it spirals. But all the way to now, where they act like a bunch of fools, right? And this is the impact of emotion on perception, perception on emotion. All right. So, yes, there, I'd work today, right? Here's an example, all right? Because one of the things that emotions can be an obstacle to is to knowledge, right? They stop you from learning if they are not moderated. So, Henry has an emotional prejudice against immigrants, right? Now, there we are, right? Or Mexicans or Romans, right? So
Oh,
he goes through,
That's
right? And now he
Oh.
has a cognitive bias to seeing things that support his prejudice, right? So when he's driving through town, he only notices lazy immigrants chilling on the side of the road, right? When he
sure.
picks up the newspaper, he's automatically going to spot articles about immigrants who murder, kill, and do terrible things, right? He then applies reasoning to it and makes a generalization from his experience. Sorry, give me a second. Let me just cough. All right. So he then makes that generalization because all that he's experienced, or all that he keeps getting fed, is what his perception is feeding him, and his perception is biased because of the strong emotion attached to it. Right? He then concludes that immigrants are bone idle and they don't know the meaning of hard work. Right? He then becomes xenophobic or racist and uses racist language because that best describes the state he's in. Do I have you up to here?
Excellent.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Right. So that is how emotion can be an obstacle to understanding, having knowledge, and knowing people. Why is this important? On a very simplistic level, why is this important for a social worker? Jackie.
You go into okay, sorry, Jackie.
You're doing well, Shakir. It can help you get to the root of behavior, because if
Okay.
emotion is driving behavior, you realize that addressing the behavior is not going to help unless you change the emotion, which means you might need to change the belief that drives the emotion.
Okay. Shakir, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, you asked why is this whole concept important in social work? I mean, we walk into a person's house and we see a druggie,
Yes.
and automatically we might just assume that, you know what, these children are in harm and whatever.
Mhm.
Whereas that man could just be, I know of a family who supported the uncle because he just didn't or couldn't. He was given a green card or something
Mhm.
to smoke dacha all his life.
Oh, I
But
like
it
that.
didn't affect the children at all.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I could walk in as a social worker and say, this is a drug home and it's bad and blah, blah, blah. Whereas there's lots of things behind the whole scene and we need to get to the root of it.
So let's go
And look,
further into that. Right. So you walk in, you see that he's a drug user. All right. Immediately, your perception, based on what you think about drugs, is he's a bad person or this is a bad home. Your
yes,
biased cognitive understanding will feed that. So you will see everything that is wrong, right? And probably exaggerate everything that is wrong because it's all you are perceiving in that moment, right?
100%.
Right. And suddenly you feel that you have very professionally reached this decision that the children need to be removed. Whereas it was actually
I,
because your
I just want
emotions
to,
influenced your perception. Sorry, yes.
what I found from myself as well, and what I've noticed this in a lot of cases that I've done, when a person is articulating their case, they tend to exaggerate just so that the person listening can become emotion on
Mhm.
par with them.
Yes, because we seek to mimic emotions in others. So
Yes.
a big tool of manipulation is getting people into a different emotional state,
Yes.
right? If you look at Hitler's speeches, right, what he was very good at was getting an emotion across and getting people worked up into an emotional state, which he could then capitalize on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? But you don't even have to go as far as back as Hitler. We can look at like South African politics, right? If politicians get the people worked up and they feed on certain emotions, people make decisions based on it, right? Which leads us to,
We'll get you jobs.
sorry?
We will get you jobs.
Exactly, right? Or can you imagine how terrible this would be if that person had to do that? There's the fear, right? So emotions lead us sometimes to poor decisions. For example, some emotions are urgent and short-sighted, right? And we all know somebody who acted on emotion, right, for immediate relief and then suffered consequences in the long term, right? The opposite to all of this is a school of Greek philosophy called Stoicism, all right? So the Stoics believed, or rather they fought for a state of mind called apathy, which meant without passion, right? Where your mind could mirror reality in a calm and untroubled way. So they fought against emotion as being the deciding factor for experience and knowledge. What do you guys think about that? How does life without emotion sound to you? What would it
Bland.
be?
Colorless.
Bland,
lifeless,
colorless, yeah.
colorless, lifeless. If
Okay.
you're sad, there's an emotion. If you're unhappy, there's an emotion.
I mean, would you watch Titanic 13, 14 times if there was no emotions?
Okay, if you're watching Titanic 13 or 14 times, we have a much bigger problem. We have much bigger problems than the emotions. Sorry, you said what?
Can't say.
Sorry? Oh, did I lose you?
Yes, sorry, you lost me for a second. What was the question?
You said what after I said the Titanic?
I said, how would a person enjoy Titanic and watch it 13 to 14 times if there wasn't emotions?
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And that's why it sells so well, right? Right? I like it. I mean, also, if you're watching Titanic that many times, I think your issues are a bit deeper than. Right.
That's that makes sense.
However,
I'll drown in my sorrows.
yes. So if we look at Star Wars, for example, all right, why did Spock go and explore new strange worlds?
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yes.
Right
Not
there.
Star Wars.
Star Trek, firstly.
Thank you.
Good
Same,
grief.
same difference.
How
Not
dare you? How
Star Trek.
dare you?
Okay.
He's
So
not a
same
Trekkie.
difference. He's the little green guy, right?
No, Nick,
No,
just stop.
where you go?
Stop right there.
Oh, it was Vader.
Why are you guys getting so
You're
emotional?
digging a hole. You're digging a hole here.
Okay.
Just
So
you there's an emotional response
Yoda was
happening
the
here, which is problematic.
okay.
Can I go back to your previous question quickly?
Yes.
I think a world without emotion would be terrible. I think that emotion is what often is what gives energy and drive to do stuff. I certainly in my life, I think stoicism is awful, quite honestly. And I once was on a tranquilizer that killed all my emotions, and it felt like I had died, and I hated it. So no, I think a world without emotions is terrible. And then Mr. Spock is in Star Trek, and he's the dude with dark hair and pointy ears. You're thinking of Yoda. It's not Yoda. Good.
Yoda was also different.
Okay. Okay, good. So he would be an example of stoicism. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. However, he still managed to explore all sorts of strange, new, wonderful places. Why? Because very often, when you tell people that a world without emotion could exist, they say, yes, but how would we develop as humans? How would we have all these things, right? So we look at something like Spock, and why did he go and explore strange worlds? Because you can still have curiosity, you can still have drive, right? You can still have solidarity with people that you agree with. Anyway, that's just all a side note.
The doctor in Good Doctor, I can't remember
Mm.
his name now. The autistic doctor, completely emotionless.
And what a great surgeon.
Brilliant.
I'm with you. Look, I'm very anti-emotion to start with. All right, so you don't have to ask me twice.
I wonder what's deeper there.
Sorry? Sorry?
Some hidden.
I wonder what's deeper there.
No,
That you bring
so
out empathy.
I think that emotions are not a real tool. They're not real in any form because they change so quickly based on perception. All right, which means that I can then change my perception and change the emotion, right? Therefore, I'll never be a victim to emotion. Does that make sense?
Choose not to.
Well, I can change the perception, and once I change the perception, I can change the emotion.
Yes.
So you lie to yourself, basically.
No, remember the snake is there, right? But if I
But if
see
you're
the
telling
snake
us,
as dangerous and I perceive it as dangerous, not with the story I tell myself, with my actual perception, I will always respond emotionally with fear. Right. So Steve Owen, what's his name? The straight Shakir,
Owen.
for example, right? He sees the snake as not scary and as something exciting. Is he lying to himself? Am I lying to myself? Who's lying? Because you're perceiving the same thing, just the two different perceptions, and they cause two different emotions.
Fear and excitement.
The snake could still bite you and die. You could die. So I think the fear is appropriate. Is an appropriate emotion.
Based on your perception that snakes are dangerous.
It's actually not dangerous because only 10% of world snakes
But that's
are
what I'm saying.
poisonous.
The perception is the problem there. Okay. So I want us to explore a bit the relationship between thinking and feeling. Right? If you had to explain it to me, what is the link between thinking and feeling? Let's go, Shakir, you start.
When you think, I would say thinking is your imaginative box. I think snake and I feel happy about the python that I had around my neck.
Oh. Okay, that sounds terrible.
I don't know.
All right. Okay, so this takes us to rationalism. And let's look at this quote from Aristotle. He said, anyone can be angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, in the right way, is not easy. Okay.
The exact amount.
And generally, if you have irrational emotion and it's not rationalized, you cannot meet that criteria, right? Are we all together there?
Yeah, but now hang on. Your thinking can also be irrational.
No, 100%. 100%.
So we can't say that thinking is better than emotion because your thinking can just be as warped as your emotion can be. And I think emotion is often more true to and can communicate to you what's going on more truthfully than a thought. So I can have somebody sitting in front of me in a counseling session and I can watch an emotional response, and they can tell me, I'm fine. There's nothing going on, but I can see an emotional response. And even if they think they're fine, or they think they're not angry or whatever, or they think it's not affecting them, I can read the emotion, which to me is truer and will tell me more than what's coming out their mouth. So
But
I
is that
think the emotions are
emotion
more,
not telling you the perception,
yes,
right?
possibly,
And is the perception true? Are all perceptions true by
No.
the nature of being
No.
perceptions? No.
no.
So
No.
if you're relying
But
on
I think
emotion, do you see the problem?
But we can get a truer understanding of the perception based on an emotion rather than based on what somebody says.
Go
Because
back to the
somebody could be
founding
lying
theory.
to us.
Your thoughts, your perceptions influence your emotion influences your beliefs equally. So it could go backwards also, right?
Yeah.
So what is the truth then? Is there a truth? Is there a way that works better? Or are you just more biased towards emotion because you feel more comfortable with emotion?
No. So the emotion will tell me what the perception is. So you can say to me, I'm not racist. I then watch you in an interaction, or I watch an emotional response to something, and that will tell me whether you're racist or not. That will give me a truer picture of your perception, regardless of whether perception is right or not. I think emotion is more trustworthy because your emotion will show me what's truly happening. Whereas you can say, oh, I'm not racist. And you go,
Okay.
And then you watch an emotion and you can go, actually, what the emotion is telling me is that you have a perception of, I don't know, Chinese people, that they are such and such because of the, exactly, because of the emotion that it evokes. Because I don't think, because emotion is not cognitive, I don't think we can lie in our emotions because it's an instant thing. So the emotions can be incorrect based on an incorrect perception, absolutely. But it does give us clues to what the perception is, far more than what your thinking does. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. However, if you only have emotion and no thinking, you have irrational emotion.
100%, yes.
Right? So thinking plays a very important role in making sure that emotions do not rule our lives.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh,
I
yeah?
think they go hand in hand.
Robert,
I think they go hand in hand.
Sorry, Shakir, you were saying something?
If you can just elaborate on the last statement you made.
You asked me very deep questions, Shakir. I hardly remember what the last statement was.
You said thinking. You said thinking helps. You said that thinking helps us make sure that emotions don't rule our lives. Whereas I think they help each other. I think they're equally valid. I think both are necessary.
Both are necessary, right? In that, no, I actually disagree. Actually, let me not agree with you for the sake of agreeing. All right. Emotion plays a role. Thinking also plays a role, right? But thinking is the gatekeeper, the last form of resort you have to prevent emotions from becoming irrational. Otherwise, right? For example, I arrive late for class, right? I walk in 10 minutes late, and two things can happen. Jackie looks at me entering the class, and she's like, okay, next year. Shakir looks at me entering the class, and he goes off. How damn well dare you be late when I've been waiting for 30 minutes? I feel frustrated, I feel angry, and completely loses his self-control. What's the difference? Thinking. Right? There's a thought process that Jackie went through that Shakir didn't go through in this example. Can we agree with that?
I probably would have been late myself.
Yeah, okay. But now, can I take that a step further? Sorry, do you want to be having this debate? Because I can leave it alone.
I do not mind. I've got about 10 minutes left before I wrap this all up. So
okay. So just very, very quickly. So Shakir can feel a bunch of irritation and emotion, but his rational thought can go, no, but it's not my place. I shouldn't go off, blah, blah, blah. And so he can deny the feeling, right? That doesn't change the fact that the feeling is there. And should you be late every single time that you meet, him denying that emotion of frustration will never deal with the problem of the fact that you're always late for stuff. Instead, he should identify the feeling, maybe not react to it immediately, but then at a later stage, accept the feeling. The feeling has a role. The reality is that you were late, and maybe if you're late on the third or fourth time, he can then go, hey, Nick, like I find it really disrespectful that you're always late for stuff.
Okay. How much of that whole story you told me now is perceptual rather than emotional?
It's both, because he wouldn't, if the emotion wasn't there, if the emotion wasn't there, then the problem of you being late would never be addressed.
Goes there further. If the perception wasn't there. Sorry, yes.
I think there's nothing to perceive that you're late. The only thing is now the reality of my irritation. I'm being emotional. The thinking part will come in, how do I address it?
So if you remove the thinking, you have explosive emotion, right?
Yes. But if you remove the emotion, then you can just do whatever the hell you like. And it doesn't matter that it inconveniences everybody. That's a problem.
For who? Not for me.
Because Becky likes you to come late because we don't do work in class. So,
yeah. So for some people, I will be a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
But if
you understand
don't
how
deal
fickle
with
emotions are?
Yeah,
yes,
but so what
if you
I'm
don't
saying
deal with your emotion, then it's a problem. Because then
but you only have the emotion because of the perception.
So the emotion is going to bring up the action of me addressing it, right? So
but the emotion rises from the perception.
At this point. Perception plays no role in this point because you are late.
But how you perceive the lateness. Remember, the late is the stimulus, right? How you perceive the lateness. So you see it as he's wasting my time. The other person seeing it as I don't have to think a lot for the next 10 minutes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay.
Right.
But if we never do work because you're constantly late, like that needs to be addressed at some point.
By who? By what?
Well, somebody. But if everybody's, if there's no emotion in that, then that'll never be addressed, and then just nobody would ever do any work.
I will stand for the class.
Do you see what a problem it is once we start giving emotions too much power? You seek an external form of authority. You now need to apply a global thing to it. You say there's a right and there's a wrong. Okay, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap up today's class. It was so lovely. I want us to start with irrational versus rational emotions in the next lesson, and then going towards what intuition is. I think I don't want to rush through it. If you're good with that, right? Are we all good with that? Well,
yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Zach, thank you so much for joining this class. Thank you for contributing so openly. I appreciated it. Thanks all of you for all the debates and your feedback. That was good. And I will see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Cool.
See you then. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.